why are we reviewing this movie? Okay, everybody, today we're going all the way back to 1983 to take a look at Jaws 3, which might possibly be the worst shark movie ever made until Jaws the Revenge came along, and or another movie called Cruel Jaws. Not related. Anyway, before we get into all that, before we dig into this gem anymore, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
With the first, you were too terrified to go back in the water. Just when you were starting to think it was safe, along came the second. Now, nature's most terrifying creature has returned in an all-new adventure. Jaws 3. A new dimension in terror. On the surface, all is calm.
It was a shark with a bite radius about a yard across.
Indicator, a shark of some 35 feet in length.
Sealed apart. Hear me? Sealed apart.
To experience Jaws 3
Quick, fight!
is to experience a new dimension in terror. The all-new Jaws 3.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by Joe Alves, and, well, this is it. This is what he really did. I mean, he was an art director and a production designer on legendary flicks. We're talking about, Escape from New York and Close Encounters and everything like that. But as far as directing, well, this was it. And maybe there's reasons for that. Anyway, let's keep moving. Playing Mike Brody, Dennis Quaid. Let's run the numbers. Of course, he was in stuff like Breaking Away. He was in things like Caveman and The Right Stuff and Enemy Mine and Dreamscape and Inner Space and Great Balls of Fire and Wyatt Earp and The Day After Tomorrow and Traffic and Legion and Tough Enough and The Big Easy and Frequency and The Parent Trap. So he was in a bunch of things. The guy's kind of like American Institution at this point. You know what I mean? Is what it was. Let's keep going. Playing Kathryn, Bess Armstrong. A name that might not jump out at you, but she had a face you kind of remember from back in the day. I actually kind of had a crush on her when I was like 12 or 13. It was only because she was in the Barefoot in the Park production, and she ran around in a bra for like 90 minutes of it or something like that. When you're like 12, that's all it takes. Whatever. Back on track. Let's run the numbers. She was in things like High Road to China. She was in stuff like The Four Seasons and Nothing in Common and Jekyll and Hyde Together Again. And TV stuff. Frasier, House of Lives, Switched at Birth, Married People, My So-Called Life. And again, I mentioned that Barefoot in the Park production that she did. It was like on stage. It was always on HBO. That's where I seen her. Go figure. I mean, Calvin... I can't remember the last name of the guy. It's something Cajun. Whatever. Louis Gossett Jr. let's do this. We're talking he was in Iron Eagle. We're talking about he was in Enemy Mine and an Officer and a Gentleman and Firewalker in The Deep, come on. And The Principal and Cover Up and The Punisher and Diggstown and a million TV shows, including Roots, the miniseries and everything like that. So Louis Gossett Jr. was around. I think he won an award, Academy Award, Officer and a Gentleman, if memory serves. Is what it was, recently passed away. What can you do? Playing Philip, Simon MacCorkindale. Playing a very Simon MacCorkindale role. Let's go. We're talking about he was in things like Death on the Nile, and Wing Commander, but mostly TV. Falcon Crest, Counter-Strike, Manimal, if anybody remembers, Casualty, and Matt Houston, and Heart to Heart, and Quartermass. So, on the scene, around the scene is what it was. Playing Sean, John Putch, who we remember lovingly from Men at Work. But he went on to be quite a director in his own right, you know what I mean? That's basically what he does now. But he was on other things. We're talking about he was on One Day at a Time. He was on Brothers and Fame and Newhart and Family Ties and Fall Guy and It's a Living and The Love Boat and Hill Street Blues. So, yes, he went to bigger heights as a director than he did as an actor, but he's in this, and hey, can't knock that. And finally playing Kelly, Leah Thompson. What? Yes, let's get rolling. Of course, she was in the greatest movie ever made, Howard the Duck. Just screwing with you. But she was in other stuff like All the Right Moves and Red Dawn and Dennis the Menace and the Beverly Hillbillies and Casual Sex and Some Kind of Wonderful and on TV, you know, Caroline in the City, For the People, and that's really all I'm only screwing with you. Back to the Future, of course. It is what it was. Let's get going to the story. Okay, everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less. So we can be short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving, and we can, you know, get on to the summation, because the story of this is, well, it is what it is. Anyway, the motion picture starts out, you have this underwater POV shot of a shark swimming around, and he bites into a fish, and you get this horrible 3D effect. It is what it is. We'll get way more into that later. Anyway, next thing you know, you're at this water park. You're at this amusement park. You're at this basically SeaWorld is what it is. And you're hanging out and watching everybody practice in and go through the motions. You get filled in on how this park was made, what the story is. You see some people training. You get to meet the leader, the head, the guy who runs the park, Calvin, who basically is a schmuck in every other sense of the word. Then you shortly after get to meet Mike and Kathryn. Well, Mike Brody, that is, happens to be the head of mechanical something or other, and he just basically makes sure that the park is always running. You never really, I don't think, get his title, but whatever, he's in charge of the park, making sure the thing runs. And you get to meet Kathryn. She is this lovely little blonde who sits around training the killer whales and the dolphins to do tricks, and you soon find out that they are a couple. Well, a couple of minutes later, you see that there's a fin trying to go into the shark, and somehow it kind of semi-screws up the gate, knocks it off the rails. I don't know what the hell it does, but it does what it does nonetheless. Mike goes out there and he says, come on, boys, no overtime, get down there and fix this son of a bitch. And, well, there you go. In the meantime, his little baby brother, Sean, shows up to visit. Isn't this wonderful? And you also see these two adventure seeker filmer guys, whatever. They show up to make a movie about the park and whatever they're going to do. It's all advertisement that the man Calvin has put together. Next thing you know, a diver goes down into the water, and he gets munched. Well, that's rather unfortunate, but this is a Jaws movie, so that is to be expected. Also, there's a couple of divers that just show up out of nowhere that are trying to steal coral from the park. I guess there's no place else to get it when you're next to the ocean. And they get munched, too. Here's what it was. You got to roll with it. Before you know it, you got your obligatory bar scene. You got Leah Thompson and everybody, and they're hanging around, and you know, Sean Brody hooks up with Leah Thompson, and they're going to go out skinny dipping, and the whole thing like that taking place. Is what it was. As you know, the movie has to move along. All around that same period of time, you find out that our young, wonderful couple of Mike and Kathryn are going to have to split up, maybe, possibly, because he gets a job someplace in South America, and she's staying where she is, and he's going to be gone a year and a half, and blah, 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 tug your heart, tug your heart. It is what it is. Goes as it was. Well, it's the next day, and they have to go looking for their missing diver friend that, remember, got killed a little while ago. And as they're down there, what do they run into? Oh! Baby shark! What? Baby shark! And Well, through hook or crook, they wind up capturing Baby Shark slightly later, and they sit there and they say, hey, how can we make money off of Baby Shark? We'll make him an attraction, and we'll put him in the show. Shortly after, missing diver friend that they never did find shows up outside a piece of glass, and everybody says, oh my God, he's dead. They examine him. They find out that Baby Shark couldn't have killed him, that Mama Shark did it, and holy shit, Mama Shark is in the park. That's right, folks. Mama Shark is in the park. She spit out a baby. They're causing all kinds of hellacious problems. Nobody spotted gigantic 35-foot Mama Shark until now, but we will keep rolling. So, shortly after that, Mama Shark makes her presence known. She starts attacking some of the tubes where all the people are walking around in the water park under there. It gets flooded. The people are stuck. They're trapped. Mike, oh my God, him and his boys have to figure out a way to patch up the holes. Meanwhile, Simon MacCorkindale and his buddy are down there like, hey, we're going to go down there. We're going to kill this son of a bitch and do some damage. Well, that doesn't go according to plan. And before you know it, Super Shark decides it's going to attack, well, the main control center that's under the water and blah, blah, blah. Of this fun park. It is what it was. That's basically the gist of the motion picture. I mean, I could have got more into specifics, but why? Alright everybody, does Jaws 3 3D work? As you remember, this was that era when everything that was part 3 of something had to be in 3D, like Friday the 13th part 3D, this part 3, whatever. But in the end, does it work? And the obvious answer is no. No, it does not work. But strangely, oddly, for reasons I can't even figure out myself, I wind up watching this Jaws movie more than I do Jaws 2, which looks like Gone with the Wind compared to this thing, to be brutally honest. So, let's get into it, let's take it apart, and let's see why it doesn't work and why it's strangely fun to watch on occasion. First off, the directing. The directing is not really good. There's points where you can say, okay, this shot was framed okay, and this scene looks acceptable, but most of it is very, very pedestrian. It's not that great to look at. It's all right in some places. It's horrifically bad in others. So take that for what it's worth. The writing, beyond the writing of the actual dialogue, which is, I don't know, it gets you where you're going, I guess. But the story, it's horrifically silly and horrifically bad. But let's just keep it to the dialogue. It's one of those motion pictures where the characters say what they need to say to get you from point A or point B. Is it dialogue on par with part 1 or even part 2? No. But if you can handle like Friday the 13th dialogue, then it kind of works in this motion picture. It is what it is. In the acting, well, sad to say, that's not a tour de force by anybody in this thing either. I mean, you got talent in this thing. You know, Dennis Quaid's a good actor. And he's all right in this. He seems kind of young for the role about this guy who's in charge of this giant park, but we'll let that go. There's times when he's trying to force the stress of the situation, but he does an admirable job. It is what it is. Louis Gossett Jr., I don't know what they had this man doing. I really, honest to God, don't. He's so over-the-top, Dick Dastardly fucking evil that you're like, nobody would put this Nimrod in charge of anything. You know what I mean? Because all he cares about is some nefarious way to make money, and it's so cartoonish that they have him playing it kind of like cartoonish. Let me kill you. You're going to do that. Good actor, just doing what he can. Bess Armstrong, she's okay in some scenes when she's playing like, you know, the cute, you know, I'm going to train the SEALs and she's got her shit together. And then other scenes when they have her reading this horrible friggin' dialogue. Oh, what are we going to do, Mike? I'm going to miss you, Mike. It's, yeah, you get the idea. You know, Leah Thompson and Putch and the rest of them, they do all right. There's nothing that bad about it. MacCorkindale is just, he's MacCorkindale, you know what I mean? He always does his shit. But, so the acting, it's nobody's best work, but they didn't have much to work with. Okay, now let's get back in track and get back to the motion picture in and of itself. Let's face it, this thing is an unmitigated disaster. The story is ridiculous. The plot holes are immense. The leaps of logic are beyond what anybody can even understand. A lot of the characters are just characters. And it's so stereotypical of what you would see in one of these motion pictures that it's kind of just sad that it kind of devolved into this when you had the masterpiece that was the original and the movie that tried, which was the sequel, which wasn't as bad as people remember, you know what I mean? It's like they tried to get the look, they tried to get the vibe, they had solid acting, but it could never compete with the original. But then this came along. And they just, I don't know what they were thinking. It was a cash grab. You get it. It was shot in 3D to be a motion picture in 3D. And let's face it, some of the 3D jumps in this are the most offensively bad looking I have ever seen in the history of my life. They didn't try to wedge them into the movie. They would just do dumb shit and stick it right into the camera to go into your face. That pulled you out of the fact that you're watching the movie. And let's face reality, if you're watching this thing today, you are watching this thing as a normal movie, not a 3D movie, which leads into the other problems that this thing is going to present, and I'll get to them in a moment. But the motion picture never really seriously tried to take itself to a degree where they wasted their time in their mind on a solid plot, a decent story, in a script that kind of made some kind of sense. I mean, let's face it. Calvin Lewis Gossett Jr. is just ridiculously stupid. He really is. For a guy who somehow wound up in charge of this multi-million-dollar facility, he is a moron. All he thinks about is how he can make more money. And no matter what somebody says to him, they're presenting him with something that he didn't think of. You know, Calvin, if we kill this shark on TV, it'll get ratings. Oh, yeah, that's money. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. But Calvin, if we baby the shark and make him an attraction, that'll make more money week by week. Oh, yeah, that's yeah, ooh, money. I mean, it's borderline offensive, you know what I'm saying? It's just so goddamn stupid. The facility itself is just ridiculous. Like, they built this giant underwater facility that's nobody ever seen before in the history of mankind, with giant tunnels, and it's big and it's massive, and it pulls you out of realism almost from the beginning, before you even get to the shark. It's the story and everything else just seems hackneyed and dumb. And we're at it. While we're at it, let's talk about some of the obvious things that are in the bedroom here. This movie looks like shit because the special effects in it are so atrociously bad. I don't know how the shark always got worse looking every movie. Maybe they showed it too much, take it for what it is, but the shark effectively gets shittier from part 1 to part 2 to part 3 to part 4. It kind of boggles the mind. Years go by, they should have more practice at making the shark. Yes, in this movie, you actually see the gum lines move up and down inside of its face. I guess that's a major breakthrough. And you do get the overused and ridiculous inside the mouth shot, like you're being munched and you see the teeth on the outside doing this. And they went to home with that. They figured they built the goddamn thing, they were going to get their money's worth out of it. But, on a whole, the movie just looks worse than any low-budget sci-fi channel fucking $30,000 price point motion picture you've ever seen. The effects are offensively bad. The shots are offensively bad. And because of the fact that this was shot in 3D and you're now watching it in 2D, every print of this motion picture has been atrocious. It's incredibly fuzzy. It's obnoxiously blurry. Everything in it that was 3D now looks so ridiculously bad that it jumps off the screen. You're just like, you could see the blue around it. It's amazing. They did a job on the DVD that was just like, well, okay, we're just going to throw it on DVD. They made a Blu-ray of it where the Blu-ray just probably looked worse than the DVD, if you could picture that fucking shit. Now they've just AI'd it up or whatever they did. And I've seen some reviews of the new, 4K transfer, where they did what they could with what they had. But don't think you're going to see a 4K movie in this thing. You're still going to see shit just shined over to make it at least semi-passable. But it's still going to look like crap compared to everything else. So when you watch this motion picture now, as a human being in 2020, whatever we are in for, you're going to sit there and look at this thing and say, my God, what is going on? It looks ridiculously bad. And apparently, either they don't know how to freaking fix it, they're not going to take the time to go back and get the original negatives and do whatever they're going to do. This is all you're going to get. It looks bad. It was acted, whatever. It was directed. It was written. And it just simply is what it is. And by the way, I really think this is also, I just got to throw it in there, as an afterthought, possibly the Jaws movie that just has the weakest soundtrack of the first three, if you want to take it from that point of view. I mean, really, you get the unmistakable fucking theme that came from the original one. Yes, it's in there. But the rest of it sounds like music you'd listen to at a theme park. Kind of cheesy and overbearing and doesn't really need to be there. It's not a great score compared to what had come previously and before. Now, I know that there was talk that they were going to make this thing into a comedy, and at one point that was the original idea, and then they said, no, we're going to try to make this thing a serious movie, and it turned into what it turned into. But it's such a fall from grace for what you had before, or what you started with. Hell, even the second looks like a masterpiece compared to this thing. So, it is what it is. I mean, I don't want to beat up on it any more than I already have. Now, are there any pros to this motion picture? Well, I have to say that sometimes it's strangely enjoyable to watch. Only because it's so goofy. It's so ridiculous. It looks so bad. And the premise is so damn stupid that you almost get sucked into it like it's one of those goofy piranha movies they did a couple of years ago where you're like, they're just having fun with this. They're mocking it. They're just goofing on it. They're just like, fuck this. We're just going to do what we're going to do. And that makes it, at times, somewhat enjoyable. It's literally like watching something disintegrate before your very eyes, and you say, oh, look at that. It's that time-lapse footage of a tree just getting ready to pass away for the fall. I think I'll watch it. That's what this motion picture is. It's a train wreck, but it's an interesting to watch train wreck at times. Because you know you're not supposed to take it seriously. You're never going to be scared. Let's knock that shit off. You're never going to catch any kind of a dramatic feeling. You're never going to feel tense. You're never going to feel dread. You're never going to feel excitement. You're just not. You're just going to watch this thing for what it is and say, what was going on? I mean, it just is what it is. It's a curiosity flick. And you're going to treat it that way. And you might enjoy it that way. And that's about as good as it's going to get. All right, everybody, get out there just for a giggle, if you haven't seen it, and watch Jaws 3 in 3D. Yes, it's a train wreck. But oddly, way more enjoyable than Jaws 4. Because Jaws 4 thought it was a serious motion picture. Jaws 4 thought it was going to make something to hold you on the edge of your seat and make a real movie. Failed miserably. Which makes this one infinitely more enjoyable than that one. Yes, they both have plot holes. Yes, they both suck. But at least this one, they're kind of like, let's just go for a ride, fuck it. Come on. Don't sweat it. You know what I mean? Give us your $8.50 at the box office and just get the fuck out of here. Have some fun. Eat popcorn and goof on it later. And they gave it to you like that. The only thing missing from this was, Zemeckis and a couple others just making this into Airplane, which is what it was supposed to be anyway. But I digress. That's a story for another day. Everybody, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be there for your friends. But most of all, more than anything, never, ever take any bullshit from anybody. See y'all soon.